Hi, huge movie fanatic Nate coming at you on a crisp, cool, but sunny. The sun's still pretty warm in mid-October. Coming to you on a crisp, cool, and sunny mid-October day here with a world-famous review request from a longtime viewer, a YouTube user by the name of the Cookie Monster 70, requested me to review this absolutely fantastic, in my opinion, classic Roman Polanski film by the name of Repulsion. This movie came out, I believe, in 1965, directed by a very young Roman Polanski, starring a very young and just beautiful Catherine Deneuve, or however the hell you say her name. This is probably, if not her first, one of her first movies, I would imagine, and a movie that she, in my opinion, does fantastically and amazingly well with such a minimalistic kind of a role. I first became aware of Repulsion probably in the mid-90s when, before DVD, Criterion put out, movies on Laserdisc. And back in the day, early to mid-90s, being a huge movie fanatic back then, and just since day one pretty much, or at least day two, having acquired a Laserdisc player, because back in the 90s and stuff, that was the only way you could see the majority of movies in widescreen, like current releases and stuff. And obviously one of the big boons of a Laserdisc player at the time was Criterion titles, which were not available, I don't think, in any other format. I don't think there was like Criterion VHS, I don't think. Don't quote me, but I don't think there was. But long story short, I rented it back in the day from Video Update and the Laserdisc Criterion, in the mid-90s or something like that, and absolutely loved this movie. This is a time in my life where I was really into, pretty much discovering, really hardcore, discovering, quote-unquote, these art house kind of movies and stuff. And having just rewatched the Blu-ray, Criterion Blu-ray I have of Repulsion, holy cow, I mean, it's really a shame. It's just so gorgeous in black and white, and it's really a shame. Watching it, I was like, it's really a shame that it looks so beautiful. And there's two points I want to make, technical points, that it's like so beautiful in black and white, and not only that, but the grainy 35mm film. It's such a shame how, in my opinion, as technology goes on, it's just like films becoming less and less beautiful and more with digital photography, in my opinion. Not only is it non-film, but all these obviously majority color movies. Revisiting Repulsion again in 2015 was really just like, wow, black and white was and is just truly such a beautiful way to experience a movie. And not only just black and white, but obviously 35mm black and white. Absolutely, just some of the shots in the movie, and obviously the Criterion Blu-ray, just some of the contrast with just some of the darks and the lights in one single shot, and just a fantastic movie. Basically, obviously, if you haven't seen the movie, I'll just briefly say it's a very interesting tale or account of this young girl, French girl, living with her older sister in London, apparently. And it's a very interesting portrayal of basically this girl in particular isn't very, I guess you could say, completely with it or whatever, and hence the title Repulsion. She's kind of very repressed and just, self-withdrawn and whatever and all this kind of stuff, and just really it really takes a lot of effort on her part to come out of her brain and associate and interact with people outside her mind. She really is this kind of personality, and you can see it in the picture of her being young, and that picture of her in there, with the family. Well, she's always just, what that picture tells us, she's always been just withdrawn and stuff like that. And it's a very interesting portrayal of someone like that. And, obviously mainstream, whatever, psychiatry profession bullshit would call her crazy or whatever and stuff. But I gotta tell you, rewatching the movie and having seen, every time I watch it, but having recently rewatched it, I gotta tell you, I actually, hesitant to say, but fuck it, who gives a shit? I kind of identify with a lot of her plight. I was formerly a pretty heavily OCD individual, and probably will have at least a little bit of OCD of the rest of my life, and I've had all kinds of stuff, and I still do have, subject to and be a victim of, maybe high anxiety at times and stuff like that. So I can definitely, empathize with this character very much like I can with, as I said before in previous reviews, with the character of whatever, the main character, I can't remember what his name, the guy who plays him is in There Will Be Blood, one of my favorite movies as well, where he's just like, I see the worst in people. I look at people and I see nothing worth liking. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, I can agree with that, but back to Repulsion, it's just a fantastic tale throughout the course of like 100 minutes or so of her, just, and it's so fantastically conceived and executed where, of course, like many movies of this sort where you have things going wrong or going awry or escalating from a less of a severe point to, all the way throughout the course of the movie to the extreme severity towards the end where it's just like she's killed two people and just basically at the end of the movie just in a, perpetual state of catatonicness. I think it's catatonia is the correct word. But absolutely fascinating, and it's an obvious 4 stars for me. I mean, ever since I very first saw it back in the mid-90s, and I had subsequently, of course, purchased, after I rented that particular Criterion Laserdisc, I ordered my own and enjoyed it for, months and months and years. And it did come out on Criterion DVD, but I never felt like getting it. But of course, once the Blu-ray came around, I'm like, it's time to upgrade the Repulsion movie on Blu-ray, and I'm glad I did, years ago, because it's absolutely fantastic. And it's particularly more interesting to see this particular movie. I think this particular story is even better when this particular comatose character, this character, a very withdrawn character, happens to be a young, beautiful girl, because you have all these other dynamics which play into exterior and internal struggles, which of course is stuff that's raised at the very beginning of the movie when she walks past some filthy, dirty old, street workers, working on construction or whatever, and he's like, shit, I can't remember the exact word. How about some of the other then? And he's just like got this, and Polanski comes around and just focuses on this, we'll just say, for lack of a better term, this pervert. It's kind of like, yeah, he's got one thing in mind as he, glares on grinningly like a pervert he is, So, telling telling this story from a point, and it's also an interesting tale of just simply sexual attraction and stuff like that, how it's weird because this British guy, this young British bloke who's kind of got a thing for her, it's really weird because he obviously seems taken with her and stuff like that, and has a thing for her. But you gotta wonder, because it's an interesting point, because the only times we see them together, obviously, like she is in the whole rest of the movie, she's just sitting there, and you gotta wonder, so what is his attraction? Obviously, if nothing else, his attraction is simply physical, because obviously when they're sitting in his little MG convertible or whatever the hell it is, and they're just sitting there in silence, you have to assume that that's how the majority, if not all, of their quote-unquote relations are. So it's kind of like, what is he, I think it's very interesting that basically, in my particular opinion, I mean, the guy's basically just physically attracted to her. I don't know if he sees her as an easy, a sure thing or an easy lay because she's so withdrawn or something. I don't know what his motivation is, but I mean, he's like, seems to be so obsessed with her, and it's just like, why? Because she doesn't reciprocate in any sense of the word at all. But it's a very fascinating movie, and watching it almost makes you weep, because it's just like, it reminds you of a day when, or a decade, a time in history not so long ago, certainly before I was born, when movies were just beautiful. I mean, Repulsion, in my opinion, is a perfect definition of an art house movie. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's very non-commercial in the sense that a lot of it is just her sitting around the apartment in silence, just looking around, looking over here, looking there, brushing shit off, looking at the walls, saying, we must get this crack mended. And of course, there's no crack. Or I think we're supposed to pretty much assume there's no cracks in the wall, and she's just seeing these cracks. But the cool thing about the very first time she looks and sees a crack, and actually mentions it, is the viewer doesn't see it. Which is really cool because it's not there. And I think even her sister all we do is see a shot of her looking over her shoulder and saying it. And I think her sister kind of looks at the spot and is just like, has this look of what, or whatever. And then I think the doorbell rings. But I mean, crap, I could go on and on and on about Repulsion. It's just so fantastic. It's so fascinating to me on so many levels. Just, then you got her older sister having an affair with this married guy, and that plays into a part where halfway or a little bit before halfway through the movie, her sister and her whatever boyfriend, this married man, go off for a vacation off to whatever, Italy, I guess, because they went to see the Leaning Tower of Pisa. That's in Italy, right? I think so. It's really interesting because that plot point of them going away is what really allows the character of this young girl to really sink into the depths of just whatever. I think that maybe this is the first time she was ever left alone, and I think the only reason she hadn't sunk into what she ends up sinking into at the end of the movie is because she did have that daily external stimuli from her older sister and her boyfriend and whatnot. And it's just so fascinating. It's just so fascinating, those fantastic two scenes where she's, her sister's gone and on vacation, and she's laying in bed and sees that. I'm pretty sure it's that actual same guy who played that dirty old construction worker at the beginning, portraying this image of this rapist guy in her mind. And it's so cool because of the way we differentiate, actual rape or sexual rape in her mind scenes from real world scenes, is that Polanski will draw back, won't have any like on-screen sound, and will kind of turn up the sound of like the clock ticking or just ambient stuff, and won't hear her screams or any of the like Foley sound, as it were, of like bed rustling or anything like that. And it's really those scenes where, I think there's two of them, where she's like attacked in her mind by this guy, or we'll just say a guy, and raped, is just really, although it's very short and we don't see anything, just the fact that the sound is gone and it's just like the ticking clock or whatever, it's just fantastically done. And of course, these two scenes of her being raped in her mind only, who knows how many times she has dreams like this or whatever, but it only gets us ready, gets her and the audience ready for the unfortunate scene when it actually happens. Well, a movie like this, as I've talked about before, is just like the gradual escalation is so fantastically well conceived and executed. The gradual, from the beginning, her being more normal. She's never really like quote unquote normal, but the gradual decline of her throughout the movie, and that great scene where this obsessive, young British lad is so obsessive that he actually comes to her door and busts it down. And it's kind of like that scene is handled so well in a way that you can completely understand her point of view. This guy, although he's very, apologetic and whatever after he does it, you can see from her point of view, it's like she just wants to be left alone, and it's just like, he's a threat when he busted through the door. That's a kind of a violent act, and not to say that he deserved to die for it, but it's just so fantastically well conceived, and executed, as I've said before. And I'm more or less a fan of Polanski. I like obviously, stuff like Rosemary's Baby and Repulsion and Knife in the Water, and Carnage I thought was fantastic. I don't like everything he does. It's kind of hit and miss for me, and I don't see actually a lot of his stuff he does. I liked back in the day when Death and the Maiden was brand new on video. I liked that, and I still do like that. I think it's fantastic. But I've always loved Roman Polanski's visual style, among other styles. But his visual style is, and this is one of his, I'm assuming one of his early films, obviously, and the visual style is so strong and fantastic, and that, among many things, just made me, like I say, almost weep rewatching it. It's just so artful and so artistically done. Just beyond 4 stars for Roman Polanski's Repulsion, which, as I said before, is fantastically presented on Blu-ray right now, courtesy Criterion. So gosh, I could go on and on and on, but I feel like I shouldn't, because you guys probably have to do other things, take a bath or take a shower or whatever, eat, and hopefully not regress into a state of catatonia. But, speaking in closing from someone who's, had his own fair share of mental hang-ups and phobias, and maybe not phobias so much as just whatever, I can identify with a lot of the stuff, and a lot of the times it's just like I don't even want to deal with people myself, and I can really identify with that aspect of it. It's just, I don't think the movie's really meant to be like a commentary on the sick, perverted world. I think the movie just shows the world as whatever come normal. I think the movie's basically saying she's nuts, whereas I see it as more of like someone who just doesn't really want to deal with the frustrations and the just whatever pain in the ass of modern day-to-day life of just crap, dealing with them old rich whatever women who are getting all these manicures and shit and having a little bit of Danish pastry or whatever that. So anyway, I could go on and on and on. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much, Cookie Monster 70, for the request. And should anyone want to see me review, should anyone want to see me, feel free. What I'm trying to say is feel free to send me any review requests yourself, and if I've seen it, I'll surely try to get to do a review of it whenever I end up doing some reviews. But checking, so, and that yes, well, in closing, thank you very much again for watching, and this review of what I would regard as just an absolutely fantastic, and so many levels. Even the music is fantastic, and it's just great. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, obviously photography, editing, just framing of shots, acting, everything about this movie is fantastic. And it's, as I said, it's just such a shame that movies like this, for the most part, are kind of a thing of the past, but at least they existed at some point and we still have them to enjoy now. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.